Good evening. What happens to the money you may contribute to a political party getting a partial tax deduction? That's one of the questions we're going to tackle tonight, but first here's Ted with the rundown.
Tonight on Webster, space, the final frontier. Or is it? There's one man on Earth who says he's been there, and it wasn't with the help of NASA or the Russians. Former journalist Claude Vorilhon is now Rael, founder of the Raelian movement and frequent traveler in flying saucers. He's coming up later with Webster. But first, will Dome Petroleum be sold to the Americans? Are Tory fund contributors happy with the latest refurbishing of 24 Sussex Drive? And will the Conservatives be able to reverse the current trend of unpopularity before the next election? In the studio with Webster, Canada's Deputy Prime Minister, Don Mazankowski.
But even more importantly, Mr. Mazankowski is the government House leader. And everywhere you've come across the country on this trip, you must have been hammered with questions about the fact that people, according to the Globe and Mail, are upset with the arrogance of your government in taking PC fund money, some $300,000, contributed by your members willingly, partially tax deductible, to refurbish that house. Is that not most upsetting to the ordinary average Canadian?
I'm glad, Jack, you said according to the Globe and Mail, because it's taken on the role of a bit of a national enquirer, and I think that it should be pointed out, first of all, that there's nothing unusual about political parties supporting their leader. This goes back to the days of George Drew.
But you're talking about funds set up by big contributors to special funds.
Big and small. And second point is that 24 Sussex is more than a residence. My understanding is that roughly 15% of the space is used for residential area. The rest of it is to receive visiting heads of state and dignitaries. As a matter of fact, I had the occasion to be there when Mr. Reagan was there with Mr. Schultz and Mr. Weinberger, and most visiting dignitaries are there.
It must be a gorgeous place. It has to be. It's our Prime Minister's official residence, and most taxpayers are happy for government money to be spent to put it in its proper condition. Whereas the allegations is that this was a deal between Mr. Mulroney and David Angus, the fund collector, and that there's some repayment being made, 50% of the monies given being repaid by the Prime Minister. It makes it sound odd, doesn't it?
Yeah, those are allegations, and I think that the point has to be made that the PC Canada Fund, which is set up and operated by a board, my understanding was done to the full knowledge of the board. And
so the Globe is wrong when they said that the members of the PC Canada Fund directors did not know about it.
My understanding is that Mr. Angus has written to the Globe and Mail and corrected a number of statements of misfact. And also my understanding is that several attempts were made to correct the story, and the Globe saw fit not to make the corrected version. But I think the point also has to be made that there were those expenditures which were of a personal nature, were repaid by the Prime Minister. Those other expenditures paid for by the party are still assets within the party, such as furniture and items of that nature.
So therefore, if and when Mr. Mulroney ever leaves 24 Sussex Drive, those assets which belong to the party will be taken out of 24 Sussex Drive?
Presumably, and my understanding is that both at Stornoway and at 24 Sussex, about 80% of the furniture is owned by the occupants.
And did the Prime Minister reimburse the fund for more than half of the money spent?
I am not sure precisely of all the details, but that is, I understand, is enclosed in the response that Mr. Angus has made. I think the other thing that should be pointed out is that when Mr. Mulroney was elected as Prime Minister, an independent consultant presented him with an evaluation of what it would require to fix the place up, and it was something in the order of $600,000, which at that time was considered to be exorbitant, and ways and means were found to repair the residence, and I think there was a sense that to repair it for that level would be too much in terms of calling upon the taxpayers.
Because we'd already spent since 1984 $900,000 on both Sussex and the residents at Harrington Lake. But what I'm learning from you is that it's perfectly kosher from PC funds, with the knowledge of the directors, after you've fought and won your election, to take those monies and apply them for necessary comforts and additions in the official residencies. Is that correct?
Well, there are a number of things that are bought and paid for out of the PC Canada Fund, furniture, computers, and things of that nature to further the interests of the party. That's certainly very kosher. We have always, going back to the days of George Drew, supported our leaders in many ways, shapes, and forms, and I don't think there's anything that abnormal.
So you feel this information dug up by the Globe and Mail out of the Access to Information Act is a red herring of some kind?
Well, there are a lot of inaccuracies in it, and what Mr. Angus is attempting to do through his letter to the editor is correct a number of the inaccuracies.
But you wouldn't agree with me, would you, that ordinary people think, I give $100 to Tories, $75 was deductible. That should all go directly to the campaigning.
Well, what do you define as campaigning? You know, a leader is perhaps one of the most important assets of any political party, and as I said before, there's been a long-standing tradition for the Conservative Party to support its leaders.
And on the basis of this, Nelson Rees of the NDP said that the actions alleged were shocking and unbelievable.
Well, you say that, yeah, alleged, actions alleged, and of course, perhaps we should wait till the full story is told.
All right, let's turn to another disaster, to a disaster. That disaster being Dome, which is now bankrupt, in effect, to the tune of $6 billion.
Another casualty of the national energy program of the Liberals, which is supported by the New Democratic Party, and I think we should never forget that.
All right. Is it not a fact, though, that you're almost bound by your principles and your statements to allow the takeover of Dome by Amoco, because you said no foreign takeovers except in cases of distress?
Well, there are a number of policy considerations that have to be reviewed. First of all, Mr. Wilson, from the financial and tax point of view, will be examining the details of that proposal. Secondly, from an energy point of view, an energy policy point of view, it will be examined. And thirdly, from an foreign investment point of view, and you have the quasi-judicial instrument, namely Investment Canada, that will be examining it. If, in the final analysis, Dome decides that it shall be Amoco, and it would be prejudicial to comment any further on this, because we do have the mechanisms and the institutions in place to go through that process.
You mean even though Dome says it has signed some kind of a deal, it must be approved by Investment Canada before it can go ahead?
That is correct.
Mind you took the teeth out of Investment Canada, which used to be called FIRA.
Well, and
right?
we campaigned on that. We said that we would dismantle FIRA, and the majority of Canadians agreed with that. And we have in place a mechanism called Investment Canada, which evaluates such proposals on the basis of whether or not such a transaction provides benefit to Canada.
So when the Liberals and the NDP, to wit Turner and Broadbent, say bring in Petro-Canada, you say no.
Well, it's very hard to determine where the NDP and the Liberals stand on any issue these days. The last week in the House of Commons, they were arguing with Mr. Wilson that he should not provide any tax concessions to anybody, and that he shouldn't sell to a foreign, he shouldn't allow the sale to go to a foreign company, and so you really can't have it both ways. I think what is important is that Dome is a casualty, the result of being enticed into doing things under the aegis of the National Energy Program. And it is a casualty out there that needs to be repaired, needs to be fixed.
It has good assets.
It has good assets. It has
got
good
oil
people.
in the ground.
It has good assets. It has good people, but it's crippled by virtue of its financial situation. And as an Albertan, the thing that we want to see is Dome back in business, exploring and developing and doing all the things that it was expected to do.
But it can't do unless somebody with money like Amoco from Chicago, whose profits would go back to the States, moves in and takes over and picks up the liabilities.
Or anyone else, for that matter. And TransCanada Pipeline have expressed a clear interest in acquiring it as well.
As a matter of fact, Hoffer is quoted on the wire today as saying he won't look at it unless he's asked to look at it by the government. The government isn't likely to ask Petro-Canada, a creature of the Liberal administration, to look into taking over Dome, is it?
Look, it's Dome is a private sector company, and it should be resolved in the private sector. We believe that there are policies of a general nature which we have in place, and with the aegis of those policies, we think that these decisions are best left to the
How
private
many
sector.
jobs in Dome?
Something like 4,000.
4,000 jobs. Which reminds me, grain. You're having a terrible time on the prairies with your farmers, are you not?
We certainly are.
How much are you going to have to subsidize them to prevent them all from going broke?
Well, we certainly are, but there again, it's the product of a commodity price war between the United States and the European Economic Community, and we're caught in the crossfire. And we're trying our level best to bring this issue to the forefront of the international forum. Pat Carney, Joe Clark, and indeed the Prime Minister has taken a leadership role in bringing this issue to the forefront, and it'll be raised at the Economic Summit in Venice. It was raised at the summit in Tokyo. There is sheer chaos in the international marketplace, and we're the victims of it. But we're going to be there supporting our farmers.
It makes free trade very difficult when the Americans are subsidizing their farm exports to vast billions, and you've got to come up with about $3 billion this year.
That is correct, and but they are fighting for their market share, and it was the European Economic Community that started the price war, and they're trying to compete in kind to maintain their market share. The fact of the matter is that both are losing market share rather than gaining market share, and we're in the business. We're pricing our grain competitively. We're supporting our farmers in the meantime because we want to maintain our share of the market. And we're going to also provide whatever assistance we can in terms of reducing input costs, and we have, and supporting them to sort of fill that gap between what it costs them to produce their grain and what they're getting for it in the marketplace.
Not in your portfolio, but must ask every Tory cabinet minister two simple questions. Icebreaker contract soon?
Well, of course, it's there now. It's just a matter of the financial structuring of the company to
Coming
be resolved.
to the coast for
well,
sure?
Of course, that's been clearly announced.
And I don't want questions on this, on the calls, but for or against the rope?
Well, the capital punishment debate's going to start in the House of Commons very soon, and the universe will unfold as it should.
You're not going to tell me one way or another.
Well, I'm a bit of an honest broker in this issue because I've sponsored the resolution.
Oh, yes,
and I want to make
You're
sure
the government house leader.
That is right.
And this is merely a resolution on the broad principle
That is right.
of restoration of capital punishment.
On the principle. If the principle is defeated, that it ends there. If there's an affirmative vote on the resolution, then it'd go to a special committee to draft legislation within 90 days.
Seems a highly unimportant topic to be occupying the country, as it will do for many moons in the midst of all our other economic crises,
That's
especially
true.
on the West Coast. Am I not correct?
That's true, Jack, but at the same token, we've been criticized for not bringing this issue...
Campaign promise.
Yes, we've been criticized for not bringing it forth earlier, and while there are a lot of other economic issues, when we took over the government, we were left with a legacy of high interest rates, high unemployment, and high deficits, and we've been trying to deal with those issues first.
Your questions to Don Mazankowski, the government house leader of the Mulroney government, the Conservative government, after the break. Mind you, I must say to you, Mr. Mazankowski, that you haven't been able to do much to lift the sagging popularity of the party.
That's right. I'm worried about that since I assumed the role of Deputy Prime Minister. We've been going downhill, and I take that personally.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr. Mazankowski. Your colleague, Ms. Kearney, called British Columbia's forests a silvicultural slum. Now, this 15% is quite a controversial issue out here in British Columbia, but the Premier of this province has said that he's not going to devote even a major portion of that money, $400 million approximately, into reforesting our forests. Is there anything you people in the federal government, through your good offices, is there any way that you can make this Premier out here see the light?
Well, we've had a meeting of the Council of Ministers that was established today, and we dealt with that and many other subjects. Naturally, we would like to see more money plowed back into the forest sector, but I think that in the spirit of cooperation that we can work these things out, and of course what we're trying to do now is get the legislation through and hopefully to get in place a mechanism, a transition mechanism that would move us away from the export tax. I mean, the federal government is imposing it and collecting it and turning it back to the provinces, and then perhaps with some other mechanism that might be put in place, it will be solely the responsibility of the province to distribute those funds as they desire.
It's now evolving into other markets now, where they're saying, oh, the Canadians admit this and that, so therefore we're going to protect ourselves in other places. But that's not in your portfolio, really. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Mazankowski.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I got two questions for you. One is, why do the Tories seem to object to Canadian presence via Petro-Canada when the Dutch government largely owns or controls a big chunk of Shell oil and doesn't object to that?
Well, I'm not sure that we object. Petro-Canada is in place, and it's an integrated oil company, and as a matter of fact, we were roundly criticized for its takeover of a portion of Gulf. So I don't think that it's there. It's doing business, and it's a Canadian company discharging the mandate for which it was set up.
Okay. Another question was, I'm a federal civil servant, and one of the campaign provinces of Mr. Mulroney was that federal civil servants would have the right to participate in politics more, like holding elected offices with political parties. And he commented on that when he, that was a promise, and I haven't heard anything about it ever since he came into power. What's happening with that?
That is a matter that's clearly being considered by the President of the Treasury Board, and I think that you will see that there will be some movement in that regard.
That means leave of absence while you run for office. Is that right?
Well, perhaps even more than that.
Oh, pay while you're running for office. Sorry, no. Go ahead, please. Sorry, I missed one. Go ahead, please.
Yes, hello, Jack.
Yeah.
Don.
Yeah.
First of all, Don, I want to tell you that we are looking after our forests here. There'll be a lot of money spent on that. Secondly, the Liberals, with the help of the NDP, have left you people in such a darn mess, you'll never get out of it. It was a terrible time to take office when you did. You'll never get out of this damn mess the way it is right now. And don't forget to bring back capital punishment.
Thank you.
Thank you for your words of encouragement.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Mr. Mazankowski. We got a problem in British Columbia, and I was on Jack's show, I phoned in about a week ago talking to Pat Carney. We've got a severe steel shortage in this province. And for some reason, the federal government wants us to buy our steel from central Canada to keep those people back there working. But the problem is they can't supply us. They've cut off our source of steel from offshore. Now we got to go down and we got to buy our steel from Portland, Seattle, California, because we can't get it. My question is, why doesn't the federal government leave us alone in the West and let us buy our steel from where we want?
Well, that's a new one on me. I'm not aware of any deliberate policy of the federal government that forces you
It's certain types of steel he's talking
to
about.
buy your steel from one place or the other.
Anyway, you've planted it in another cabinet minister's mind. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr. Mazankowski. Yeah. Were you responsible or at a hand in imposing a contract on the longshoremen out here in this port?
Pardon me?
Did you have a hand in imposing a contract on this port, the longshoremen? There
was legislation, back to work legislation, to get the grain moving again, and I think that it was supported by Parliament, and there was I believe a mechanism put in place to resolve the container clause issue, which hopefully
an arbitrator was appointed
yeah.
who's going to bring it down in June, right. I think. Is that right, caller?
Well, right, but the whole West Coast, right down to San Diego, that's in the contract too. The container clause applies to the whole West Coast, right down into the States. Mm-hmm. And couldn't there be a way of putting a tariff on shippers bringing their stuff through the ports of the U.S. into Canada?
Well, I think the legislation provided for an arbitrator to resolve this issue, and my understanding is that it was really the best solution both from the standpoint of the companies and the workers who were at a deadlock.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'm interested in the potential dome sale to Amoco of Chicago, and I'm wondering about the implications in terms of the larger economic integration that we are, some of us are afraid might be the result of the free trade negotiations continuing, and whether this can be seen as there's some connection in that?
Well, not directly, but I suspect that peripherally that could be the case. But you know, there are a number of policy considerations that will have to be evaluated in the course of determining whether this is a good deal or a bad deal for Canada. And one is the foreign investment policy, which is administered by Investment Canada. The other is our own energy policy, and thirdly is the policies of the Minister of Finance as it relates to any tax concessions and tax liabilities. And I think that those three things have to be examined, and of course the broader general interest at the same time.
Yeah, so this is what I've understood, but don't you believe as a very important leader of this country that our energy self-sufficiency and independence should be a #1 priority, and that we should not be allowing our sovereignty to be compromised in allowing a major acquisition by perhaps a benevolent or neutral foreign corporate power in such a crucial area?
I can't think of another industry that is more regulated than the energy sector in terms of the control of the resources. The province controls the resources. The federal government has a clear responsibility and obligation to maintain energy self-sufficiency and security of supply. And these are all things that are regulated whether it's a Canadian company or a foreign-owned company. And I think that those objectives can be achieved. But there's a balance that has to be attained, and I can only assure you that all of these things will be taken into consideration.
More with Don Mazankowski after the break. Deputy Prime Minister, Government House Leader, Ottawa, Don Mazankowski, call from Salmon Arm. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Mr. Mazankowski.
Hi.
How long do you people going to keep on blaming the Liberals for all your problems?
Well, I'm not blaming the Liberals. I'm just stating a fact. And,
you just said a little while ago that the Liberals were to blame for all the trouble you got.
No, the casualty.
Now, you keep on talking this way, and yet you've had enough time to straighten things out, and yet why don't you do something about the problems that we have right now?
We've brought down interest rates. We've brought down unemployment. We've brought down the deficit.
You haven't brought down the interest rates. That was world things from the United States that have done. You people haven't done that.
Well, I'll tell you what, if they'd have gone up 5 percentage points, then we'd have certainly been blamed. And you know darn well...
You've never been blamed for that now, because we know that it all comes from the United States.
Well, you know very well that controlling the deficit and creating a more positive investment climate has a lot to do with bringing down interest rates. And we brought the deficit down from $38 billion. When Joe Clark was defeated in 1980, we had a deficit of $11 billion. We inherited a deficit of $38 billion. We brought it down to 34, to 32, to 29.
Yeah, now, that's what right now is a hell of a lot worse than it was before.
That's what we were elected to do, and unemployment has been brought down in every region of the country.
Jobs all over, and we don't have them in B.C. now. Don't tell us that.
627,000 new jobs, and the unemployment rate in British Columbia has dropped by 2 percentage points since we've been in office. And it's not good enough. It's not good enough.
Say that, but I don't believe it.
It's dropped from 15 to 12.9 or something.
Something like that.
Yeah, not very impressive.
No, it isn't. And we recognize that more needs to be done in Western Canada.
The Golden Triangle in Ontario that's the only really prosperous part of the country.
For the time being, but we're addressing it. And one of the important issues that we're addressing is the Western Economic Diversification Program, which we were discussing with the BC ministers today. And,
Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mazankowski.
Good afternoon.
I am totally against the dome situation going to Chicago. For one thing, I think our energy should be controlled by Canadians only. And because oil prices are going to go up. And the first thing you know, as soon as it's sold, they'll start to go up. It's going to have to go up in time.
Well, I appreciate your comment.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr. Mazankowski.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Basically, I agree with your approach to Dome Petroleum. But don't you think we should try to keep it Canadian? Isn't there some reason how we can do it?
Well, of course, those are some of the considered. We haven't seen the precise details of the proposal, and I'm not sure at the present time whether the Trans-Canada pipeline offer is totally out of the picture. Those are things that will have to be considered, and it's very awkward commenting without having all the details and without having a chance to examine them. And you have these mechanisms in place and a quasi-judicial body that will examine an acquisition by a foreign-controlled company within its mandate and within its terms of reference. It would be inappropriate for me to signal the government's leaning when you have this quasi-judicial body in place to deal with this sort of thing.
The fact remains is that somebody's got to bail out Dome, either with Canadian taxpayers' money or healthy American investment.
Precisely.
That's the choice.
Precisely. And we want Dome to be operating as a viable energy company and to maintain jobs and to contribute to energy self-sufficiency and exploration and drilling activity. That's very important in Western Canada.
Go ahead, please.
Sir, my question concerns our Copyright Act. The entertainment industry is a billion-dollar industry in Canada. We're losing a lot of our acts to foreign companies. The Copyright Act was passed in, I believe it was 1926.
Right.
The royalties are like 2.5 cents. In Europe, in the U.S., they're 7 cents. The time is now to bring in that. You said earlier something about 90 days you can pass a reform on something. And I think it's time now to develop this industry. It is a billion-dollar industry, and nobody talks about it, but it really is time now to begin working to bring that up to 1987 standards.
I couldn't agree with you more, and your point is very well taken, and something is being done on it.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Mazankowski. I would like to ask you if there's any possibility that when the government goes to the summit, is there any possibility to get back to the old gold standard where the gold backs up the currency of the country? Number two, is there any possibility that you can fix the Canadian exchange rate once and for all? It must make it very difficult for any company to be competitive when it fluctuates the way it does, and the only people I can see is benefiting from it is the people that have enough money to buy and sell
currency.
Well, I think the most important thing is stability, and one of the things that I think is that we've been able to bring about is some stability in the exchange rate and some stability in interest rates, and the dollar has remained stable, which reflects the buoyancy and the strength of our economy. The interest rates have been going down and remaining fairly stable. They're not erratic, and I think that's a clear indication of sound financial management.
Go ahead, please.
Congratulations, Mr. Mazankowski, on all the steps you've taken to clean up the mess.
Thank you very much.
You've created. When will the softwood lumber agreement be going through Parliament?
It's in its final stage at the right now, third reading and report stage. There's some amendments, and it's just a matter of going through the final stages in the House of Commons.
And do you think we could get a major defense contract out in this part of the world, like the submarine contract, if it's coming into?
Well, we've just been awarded the Polar 8 icebreaker, subject to some certain financial restructuring and arrangements. So that's a $350 million proposal. Perrin Beatty, the Minister of National Defense, will be bringing forth a new white paper on national defense, which I think most of us will find most acceptable, and particularly acceptable for Western Canada and BC in particular.
Good. And give my regards to Hugh Windsor of the Globe and Mail when you see it, will you?
Sure will.
My thanks to Don Mazankowski. Next we'll go into space, aliens, extraterrestrials, and we'll let you go after the break.
Play the pop tones.
Over many years, I have interviewed believers in flying saucers. I have interviewed people who've been to Venus and back. I have interviewed Monqua from Mars and countless others, Fry, etc., who went on miraculous spaceship journeys but were never, ever able to prove that they had ever done anything of the sort. So here am I, not being rude to my next guest tonight, but being properly cynical. His name is Rael.
Yes.
Claude Vorilhon, Rael, and he's trying to form a new religion. Is that correct?
Not exactly, not exactly.
But you want your adherents to give you 1/10 of their income. Is that correct?
No, it's 3% to the movement. The movement, and the goal of the movement is to build a safe place, an embassy to welcome these people.
Okay, an embassy. In other words, you want anybody who believes in your book, which sells in the marketplace, and joins your cult.
It's not a cult. It's not a cult. It's a way to understand from where we are
Coming,
yes.
from where we have come.
Yes.
And you've got many new things to tell me about that.
Yes.
But once in the cult, you want them to give you 3% to build an embassy for extraterrestrials to reappear on Earth.
Exactly.
Okay, back to day one. What happened to you on December the 13th, 1973?
I was journalist in Clermont-Ferrand, a city in the center of France, and I was going to my office. It was about 9 in the morning, and suddenly I turned left with my car. I didn't know why, and I went to a volcano. The name is Puy de la Sola. It's 10 kilometers from Clermont-Ferrand. And then, when I arrived, I left my car and went by foot to the center of the volcano. And then I was asking to myself, what am I doing there? I have a lot of work in my office, and I was thinking to go back and look to the sky, and I saw a flashing light, very strong flashing light, and something like a flattened bell, maybe 7-meter diameter, who was slowly going down.
A flying saucer.
Exactly.
With a red light on the top and a white light on the bottom.
Yes.
7 meters across.
Exactly.
And out of that, you asked me to believe, appeared a ladder.
Yes, exactly. And
down the ladder came...
a small man.
How small?
Yes. A small man with a large almond-shaped eyes, and he was very, very radiant, very beautiful.
He had a halo.
Yes, exactly. And he came to me, and he asked me to follow him in the UFO. And I resume, of course, because my conference is 1.5 hours, and we have a lot more to explain. But
so you go into the UFO,
exactly,
and you talk with him for 1.5 hours.
Exactly.
And he still has his little green suit on.
Yes. And what is important is the message they gave me. I can resume in 1 minute, if you like.
Well, before you give me the message, how did he attract you there?
By telepathy.
Telepathy.
Because I had nothing to do in this place. And they teach me, we ask you to come by telepathy. And I was very surprised, of course.
You were picked of the 4 billion people on Earth to go there and to receive the telepathic message, to get this message, for instance, that evolution is a myth.
Exactly. Evolution and gods are myths.
All myths.
All myths. And you know, before this message, we have only two ways to explain our origin. The first one was a supernatural God. The second one was evolution. And both are theories. And this one...
Theories.
Theories, yes. Theories. And this one is a scientific explanation of our origin.
All right, but let me ask you my old-fashioned, hard-nosed questions. What did you bring with you from the little flying saucer?
Nothing, only the
Why?
message. Because I asked for something, but what is important is the message. They came on the Earth a very long time ago. There was no life, and they built a big laboratory. And in these laboratories, through DNA and genetic combination, they created life. And they created man on their image, exactly like the Bible explained. But in the Bible, it's not written God in the original Bible.
Yeah, but don't give me all the old stuff from the Bible about Ezekiel and the flying chariots and the flying saucers, which I know are present in folklore. Did they come back to see you again?
Exactly.
How many times did they come back to see you?
The second contact was after the sixth first. We were in 1973, was in 1975. And also they teach me, they send a lot of messengers like Moses, Buddha, Mohammed, and Jesus. Jesus who was the son of one of them and a girl from the earth. And he say, my father was in the sky. He was only an extraterrestrial, the father,
Just a
not
minute,
a god.
just a minute, just a minute. A little bit sacrilegious and all the rest of it, but you're entitled to believe what you like. You went up in another spaceship on a different occasion.
Yes.
And did you meet these prophets?
Exactly. On the planet where they live,
How long did it take you to get there?
a few minutes. Because they have 25,000 years of scientific advance on us. It's exactly if you bring Christopher Columbus here today, and he say, oh, it's 3 weeks to come from Europe, but now with Concorde, it takes only maybe 3-4 hours. We have a different level of technology.
But where did they take you? You were in a bigger flying saucer which had 12 seats in it, am I correct?
2 seats in the first. We have first.
And where did it take you?
On the planet where they live.
What's the name of the planet where they live?
This planet is not in our solar system, but in our galaxy. We don't know the name. For them...
So they took you there?
Exactly.
And you got out of the flying saucer on their galaxy?
I don't know the name of the planet, but I know the name of these people.
What was the name of these people?
Elohim. Elohim is the name which is in Hebrew Bible and was wrongly translated by God in singular. But Elohim, plural, the meaning is those who came from the sky. And they were the people, the Bible explained what they did. But for primitive people, they were thinking, oh, it's God, it's God. But no God, only people like us.
Are you a student of Erich von Däniken?
Not a student, but a friend.
Have you been brainwashed by Erich von Däniken?
Not at all. But last year, he invited me to have a dinner with him because he agreed with my book.
But I skip-read your book. I found some of it quite disturbing. And I got the impression that at one time these wonderful they are humanoids.
They are like us.
Just smaller.
Just smaller, but not everybody. And on their planet, you have thousands and thousands of people who were recruited after death on their planet, thanks to DNA and to cloning. So when you die, it's possible to have eternal life with them.
It sounds to me like you, very fine man though you are, trying to raise $1 million, is it, for the...
No, we already have $1 million. We need $15 million to build
You
this
sound
embassy.
like Oral Roberts.
It's different because it's a non-profit organization.
Ah, but so are theirs non-profit organizations.
Yes. And I am not there in the name of God because we don't believe in God. And nobody in my organization have money from the organization, also me.
In your book it says that the Tower of Babel was a spaceship.
Exactly, like the Ark of Noah.
And that the Ark was sent here so that certain people could avoid the atomic destruction of everything on the face of the earth.
Exactly.
Who told you this?
These people, Elohim, the meaning is those who came from the sky, and the Bible describes what they did, all the Bible.
Are you a religious fanatic?
Not at all, because we don't believe in God.
But how can, without any shadow of proof at all, nobody ever went with you, you always went alone, you are the sole messenger of this whole new story of creation, evolution, by DNA and genetics, and they said that you were cloned. Did they clone you yourself?
Yes, they took a cell in my front.
From beginning. Where were you when you were cloned?
On their planet. On their planet, they took a cell in my bone.
Could you breathe on their planet?
Of course, it's exactly like the Earth, but it's the paradise. It's like a paradise.
So they took a cell from your forehead,
and they put in a big machine, and in this machine, I saw like in an aquarium a blue liquid, and in this blue liquid, it appears bones and flesh and skin, and they made a copy of me, a clone. In a few minutes, I saw an exact copy of me. That was the most impressive thing for me.
Did it come out?
Yes.
Why didn't he come home with you?
Because there is a law on their planet, you can only have one person at the same time.
But if they had wanted to spread the word and you had come home instead of just one of you, 6 of you,
yes,
we would have believed.
It's not a question of believing, it's a question of understanding. All the 20,000 members of my organization, nobody believe me, but they understand. It's the most materialist explanation of our origin.
They believe you.
They don't believe, they understand.
Well, I understand. I don't believe.
It's not a question of believing.
You seem like a nice guy. You're not in it for the. You're not in it for the money.
Of course not. If I would like to make money, it's very easy to come and to say, God, send me, give me $1 million because I speak in the name of God. But I say there is no God. And you know, in this time, it's very difficult to say that because if you like to make money, it's not the good way.
You have found a different God. That's all you
Not a
have.
God. People like us. They are equal to us. No,
they're much smart. We can't make clones.
We will. They teach
We're
us.
talking about it now here.
Yes, but
see, I think you've been influenced by the current scientific research and perhaps brainwashed yourself into believing this as a dream.
Not at
Your
all.
questions to Rael, delightful fellow. Don't believe a word he says. After the break. Rael is one of the best flying saucer enthusiasts I have so far met. How fast do these ships travel?
I don't know, but the speed is not imaginable.
And you just sitting there with all these people and you went straight there
Yes,
and
and
off?
you have a very special sensation, like if ice is in your body, in your bones. It's very impressive.
Mind you, you're going to hold a little seminar here at which you hope to make some money, but we'll give you a plug on that later on. Let's go to the phones. Go ahead, please, to Rael.
Thank you. I would like to ask, first of all, did you believe in God before you had this experience? And if these people from this other planet supposedly created us, why are they letting murder and rape and killings going on?
No, before I never believed in nothing, only in racing cars, magazine, in racing cars, because from the age of 9, I was hoping to become world championship in World Formula 1. So I never believe in...
But when are they going to come back and make us into the perfect human beings you see they are on their perfect planet?
Yes, it's depend of us, not of them. We have to progress. We have to destroy all the atomic bombs. We have to destroy all the violence on the earth. That is our responsibility. They create us perfect at the origin.
Didn't they once destroy the earth before?
Not at all. Of course, if we destroy the earth with atomic war, they will come to save some people who work for peace, love, intelligence on the earth. They will be saved exactly like in the time of Noah.
Go ahead, please.
Come on, Rael. I'm a skeptic, too. Now, if they're so technologically advanced, why can't they give you the resources to come here and set up this embassy, which is going to do who knows what? I just don't understand that. Why do you have to get resources from us to set up an embassy for them?
You know, when you invite somebody in your home, you don't tell to people, please bring your bed. So it's only our decision. If we would like to invite them, we will build this embassy. It's not a church, not a cathedral, not a temple expensive, not the Vatican, only a simple house.
This is a poor explanation.
Yes,
if these people are so all-powerful and so clever and so smart, in fact, you produced a picture of your mother in the spaceship.
Yes.
And they created your mother in the spaceship.
Exactly. On their planet, not in the spaceship.
On their planet?
Yes.
And your mother, who was in Earth, was there at the same time?
From the photography, yes.
Does she remember being on the other planet?
Not at all. Not at all.
See, you got to make me a cynic. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi, Jack. My question is, your guest there, have you ever gone under any hypnosis or has voluntarily taken a polygraph test to verify his story? And if not, why does he seem to be coming across to be so convincing to other people? If they, these aliens, decided to come and show one person what they can do and what they're about, why wouldn't they show a lot more?
Yeah, why pick you? Why not land on the steps of the White House, as I've said 1,000 times to flying saucer enthusiasts?
Yes, they need a safe place, because when they appear upon America, the American army fights them because they think it's Russian. When they appear upon Russia, the Russian army fights them because they think it's...
In your book it says 400 feet up and then they go so fast you can't see them.
Exactly, but they don't like aggressivity. They would like to have a safe place where they will come with respect, you know, with extraterritoriality, exactly like another embassy.
All these, how many people did you see on this mystery planet in our galaxy?
Oh, there's a lot of people. And
millions?
Not millions, but hundreds and thousands of people I saw.
Men, women, and children?
No children, because they have eternal life, so they cannot have babies. Because when you are eternal, if you have babies, you have very fast you go to overpopulation.
So you just get recreated once?
Exactly, but only when you die.
And when any one of us dies, we're going to be recreated there?
Not everybody, only people who work for peace, love, intelligence can have eternal life after die. Not everybody.
Well, there might be 6 people on Earth.
There was 8,400 in 1975, and when you think we were on the Earth 20 billions of people, that's very few.
Where do you get the 8,400? Where do you get the 8,400?
They teach me on their planet 8,400 people from the Earth live on their planet after death. So these people
now you're saying they pick you to go to heaven one at a time.
I did see these people.
Go ahead, please.
Jack?
Yeah.
Well, I'd say, Jack, you either have a false prophet on your show or some right Wally there.
Well, fair enough. He wasn't very nice to you. He called you a false prophet.
Yes, that was preview. It was preview. Our time is apocalypse time. But apocalypse, the meaning is not the end of the world. In Greek, apocalyptes, the meaning is revelation. And it was preview in the Bible. One day will come, a man will come to destroy the mystery of God. And it's my mission. I explain why there is no God. And of course, you have a lot of false prophets. All the American preachers you have and many others.
I've been a false prophet myself on occasions. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. Rael, I have a question for you. If these people want to get in contact with Earth, why don't they merely contact the SETI program?
The which program?
The SETI program run by Dr. Carl Sagan and NASA. This is a program that's been set up to monitor radio transmissions and make contact with aliens.
I mean, we're looking for aliens in outer space.
That is correct.
Yes, but they need a safe place to come and not from a state. Not only America, not only Russia.
International programs.
International, international peaceful place to come, really to come, not through scientists, not through, directly to speak. I hope your TV program will be there. Everybody will look at them and directly, no recording and changing.
Don't give me that, Rael. You know perfectly well that if somebody wanted to land in a peaceful and quiet manner and present themselves in a public place, in the Western world, they would be received with some amazement and civility. Nobody would shoot them.
Of course, yes. Of course, yes. And first of all, they will censure what they will say. So it's necessary to have a safe place where they will speak directly to everybody, no through censors.
Well, now they've only spoken to you, though.
No, only to prepare the place. And then they will come, if we build this embassy, to everybody.
Go ahead for mission.
Hi, I'm wondering about the medallion around the gentleman's neck. It appears to be a combination of a Star of David and a swastika. It seems a strange combination to me.
Okay, just good time to explain the medallion.
Yes, this symbol is the symbol of infinity in time and space. The triangle means infinitely large, this one infinitely small.
Comes from Sanskrit originally, I believe. Am I
Yes.
not correct? Give me his plug for his meeting quick before we run out of time.
And you, yes.
Robson Square Center, it's up on the thing right now.
And you can find this symbol in the Book of Dai of Tibet, Bardo
Good.
Todol.
And I'll be back after the break. Tomorrow, Joe Clark, the Honourable Joe Clark, Minister of External Affairs, the federal government will be on the programme. And I think we'll replay a Best of Webster 2 tomorrow night. Very good one with Connie Francis at 5 p.m. precisely.